example,
Mm-hmm.
that we've outgrown our susceptibility to disease and natural disasters. All of those things are on the horizon. But what they said is that we must find a way to get through the next 8 to 10 years before we have that beautiful future. That we've got to find a way to solve the problems of energy, of war, based on our belief systems, the diseases, the climate changes that we're looking at now.
Yeah.
And this is what brings us right back into this conversation that you and I are having today, because they said to solve these problems, we've got to look at them through new eyes. We've got to look at them in a way that we've never looked at them before, because the tools that we've always used to solve our problems in the past simply are not working. So we need new tools based on new understandings that come from a new way of looking at our world. And for me, this is why our newest book, The Divine Matrix, it's such a powerful book, because it's taking an old idea, the idea that everything is connected. That's a very ancient idea. But it's taking that idea through the eyes of what modern science now has discovered, some of the discoveries only within the last couple of years, and it's bringing that information to the general public in a way that everyone can understand and in a way that everyone can use, and it means that everyone has a voice. We have a vote in how we solve these problems. It's not left to just a handful of leaders in a couple of nations.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this time so exciting, and that's why I am so optimistic about this time.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds very good. I mean, let's kind of go to the heart of the matter, I guess. I mean, the Divine Matrix. What is that? Tell us about it.
Well, the Divine Matrix. It was very healing for me to write this book. It's the result of over 22 years of research and my presentations that I've shared with audiences all over the world. And it, it's based in the scientific fact. And it is now a fact that there is a field of energy that bathes all of the universe, as far as scientists know, that permeates all of creation, a field of energy that connects everything in ways now that we're only beginning to understand. And it's so interesting to me, because modern science is only now arriving at this understanding, on the one hand, and on the other hand, this is the place where the ancient spiritual traditions, some of them 5, 6, 7, 8,000 years old, this is the place where they begin. So people ask me, they say, well, Gregg, why would you spend your time going into the ancient temples and spending so much time in the remote monasteries in Tibet and Egypt and Bolivia and Peru? And this is the answer to that question, because there's a knowledge that's held in those ancient cultures that we in the Western traditions lost around 300 years ago with the birth of science. So from my perspective as a scientist, I'm thinking that if we're facing these great challenges, and the way that we look at the world doesn't give us the tools to solve them, what would happen if we take the best science that we have today and we marry that, we merge it with the best wisdom of our spiritual past? What if we marry those two different ways of knowing into a greater wisdom? Where will that lead us? And this is what this Divine Matrix now is beginning to show, is that there is this field of energy that connects everything. It's the field of energy where our healing begins, where peace begins, where our abundance, our material and our spiritual abundance, where it begins, where the success of our careers begin, the success of our relationships. It all happens in this field of energy before it ever becomes real in our world. So that understanding, scientists now accept the fact that this field is there. So it's not a theory, it's not a metaphor, and it's not a New Age thought. It is a scientific fact. But what the scientists are now asking is how do we use this field? What does it mean in our lives? And this is where we go back into the ancient traditions that have known about this field for thousands of years, and they tell us how that we can apply this in our lives. They say, yes, not only does the field exist, they say, here's how you use it in your life, and this is where the great spiritual traditions have been born. And later, religions came along and kind of wrapped themselves around these traditions. But if we can go to the heart, go to the core of those great spiritual teachings, we're given the instructions that tell us how we can communicate with this field of energy to create healing in our bodies, healing in our families, peace between nations, and cooperation in the family of humankind. And I think that is worthwhile to explore.
Yeah, definitely. And so in a way, we're kind of approaching or coming to kind of a full circle here, I guess. And with this, again, science as a tool, we are rediscovering that fact, I guess.
Well, Henrik, it's interesting that you use that language, because that is precisely the language that I use as well. I want to make myself very clear. I was trained as a scientist, and I believe that science is good, and we've benefited from science. It has served us, and it's given us things and experiences that we would never have without the science. What has happened, in my opinion, is that now we're pushing the limits of the science, and we're doing so without the spirituality that gives meaning to that science.
Yeah.
And I think that the science can become empty, if I can use that term. It loses its heart and the respect and the honoring of life until we bring back the spiritual principles that tell us that we're part of everything. Those spiritual principles tell us that we're part of all life, that we're part of one another, that life is precious. And that's something that it's hard for science to really tell us, because what science does, science tells us how things work. It tells us about the mechanism, the nuts and the bolts of why things work. But science doesn't always tell us how to apply those understandings in our lives.
The
spiritual understandings are not technical, but they tell us, because we're all connected, here is what that connection means, and here's how you use it in your life. And to me, it's not that the two are incompatible, it's that the two must be in place. The two are necessary. They require one another for us to have a complete understanding of this universe and of ourselves, our role, who are we in the world, and what are our true capabilities, what are our true responsibilities. And I think that comes from our understanding when we marry the spirituality with the science, when we marry how things work with how to use those understandings in our lives, then it brings us full circle. And we have all the information we need to make the decisions about our future. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's so difficult for people now to make many of the decisions, is because we simply don't have all the information. We're not told that we're part of the rocks and the trees and the air and the earth. Some people know that, but it's not general mainstream thinking.
That's right.
And we're not told that we have a language within each of us that communicates with this field of energy to create the effects in our lives and in our world that bring joy to our hearts. We're not told that we have the language to communicate with this field of energy. This is some of the information that was lost in the Western Judeo-Christian traditions. On the one hand. On the other hand, it was not lost in many of the ancient and indigenous traditions, and this is why I think it's valuable to go into these remote, isolated villages and the pristine monasteries of Tibet and Bolivia and Peru and the mountains of Egypt, because there is a knowledge that's been preserved